If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content every week. Thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by. This video is going over the Allarus Custodian units in the new Lines of the Emperor Detachment. We will be looking at the Shield-Captain in Allarus and the Allarus Terminator unit. If you are a veteran of the channel, you will know I love my Allarus. The last time I did an Allarus video, the Shield-Captain was only an afterthought. In the Lines of the Emperor, they are arguably the best character for Detachment. Let's start by taking a look at the datasheets for the Shield-Captain in Allarus and the Allarus unit. First up is the Shield-Captain. It has a movement of 5, toughness of 7, a 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 7 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 2. For the ranged weapons, we can either have the Guardian Spear or the Castellan Axe, and they have 2 attacks each, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2. And then we can also shoot the Ballistus Grenade Launcher as well, and that's the wrist-mounted grenade launcher that comes on every Allarus model. And that is D6 with Blast, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. And then our melee weapons, you can select from either the Guardian Spear or the Castellan Axe. The Guardian Spear has 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. The Castellan Axe has 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 9, AP 1, damage 3. For the abilities, we have Martial Kata, which will give the Shield-Captain access to our army rule, which will allow us to pick either sustained hits or lethal hits in the fight phase. The Shield-Captain also has Deep Strike, Strategic Mastery, and Oromite and Adamantine. Those abilities, Strategic Mastery, once per battle round, you can select one model from your army with this ability and target that model's unit with a stratagem, and if it does, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1. Oromite and Adamantine, once per battle at the start of any phase, this model can use this ability. If it does, until the end of the phase, each time attack is allocated to this model, change the damage of that attack to 1. Then we have the unit of Allarus Custodians, movement of 5, toughness 7, 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 4 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 2. They have the same weapon selection as the Shield-Captain. For their ranged weapons, the Guardian Spear or the Axe, along with the Ballistus Grenade Launcher. For the melee weapons, there is a little change. You can have the Guardian Spear, Castellan Axe, and you can also equip the Vexilla and a Misericordia in this unit, and the Vexilla will give each model an extra 1 OC. But it's not something we really use in this unit, since this unit is made for doing damage. For the Allarus abilities, they have the same as the Shield-Captain, Deep Strike with the Martial Kata, and then they have Slayer of Tyrants. Each time a model in the unit makes an attack that targets a character, monster, or vehicle unit, you can re-roll the wound roll. And then we have From Golden Light. Once per battle at the end of your opponent's turn, if this unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can remove it from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves. As you can see, the Allarus datasheet is amazing. It does not even need detachment rules to be a good unit. At 65 points a model though, they can add up fast. And they do have to be taken in at least a 2 model, 3, 5, or 6 model unit. I love the look of the Castellan Axe, but AP1 really hurts these, so most of the time we do take the Guardian Spears on our Allarus Terminators. Slayer of Tyrants working on their ranged and melee damage will make a big difference in this new detachment. Reroll wounds into character, vehicle, or monsters is pretty much anything important to our opponent's army. The Custodes army rule Martial Kata will give them that sustained hits or lethal hits in melee, and you combine that with the reroll wounds, they are reliable damage dealers. Golden Light is one of my favorite Custodes abilities. Being able to return these into reserves once a game is fantastic, because that means we can rapid ingress them back down if we need to, and we can also keep them in reserves until turn 5. Since this was a reposition move, they were already on the board. They don't have to come down in turn 3 like any of the units you started the game in reserve with. The Shield-Captain and Allarus, on the other hand, these by themselves with no rules are not anything special. These have not seen much play in all of 10th compared to our other character options such as the Blade Champions with Wardens. Strategic Mastery, to reduce the cost of a stratagem by 1, is available on all 3 of our Shield-Captains. The Oromite and Adamantine is a great ability. For the points cost of a Custodes character and no real synergy with the Allarus, we didn't really take these that often. Now that we have the basics of these 2 units, let's take a look at how the new detachment, Lines of the Emperor, benefits these Allarus Terminator units. There are some very strong enhancements for the Allarus Shield-Captain in this detachment, breathing some life into an underused character. First, for the lines of the Emperor, I want to go over the detachment rule, against all odds. Each time an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army, excluding vehicles, makes an attack, if there is no other friendly units within 6 inches of that unit, and add 1 to the wound roll. And this can be in the shooting or the fight phase. The +1 to hit will be situational, since we already hit on a 2+ and a roll of a 1 is an auto fail. It will come in handy against any of those -1 to hit units or any -1 to hit or ballistic skill modifier. +1 to the wound though, now that is something we can use to our advantage. It makes the Allarus melee damage even more reliable. +1 to the wound on a unit who can reroll wounds is a great combination. Anything toughness 6 and under, the Guardian Spears with +1 to the wound, they will be wounding on a 2+ with reroll wounds if it is a character, vehicle, or monster unit. Toughness 7, it will be a 3+, and anything under toughness 14, we will be wounding on a 4+, with the potential of reroll wounds, which makes us want to choose the Martial Kata Sustain Hits 1 when we have access to +1 to the wound in the fight phase. Already a powerhouse in melee, +1 to the wound roll just cranks them through the roof. The +1 to the wound really helps the shooting of the Allarus. They get to shoot with their melee weapon and that wrist-mounted ballistic grenade launchers. Both have strength 4 and AP 1, and with +1 to the wound and a possible reroll wounds, the Allarus shooting become an actual threat to enemy units besides chaff and horde units. Making sure to be outside of 6 inches of other friendly units is really important for these Allarus units. And that's the lines of the Emperor detachment rule and how it works with the Allarus. Now let's move on to the enhancements that we can put on the Allarus Shield-Captain. And let's take a look at those enhancements. Our first one is Ad Moni Mortis, our Shield-Captain model only. Improve the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bearer by 3, and improve the armor penetration and damage of those weapons by 1. This makes an Allarus Shield-Captain into a Primarch level threat. I prefer the Castellan Axe, adding the 3 strength, AP 1, and damage 1, taking it to 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 12, AP 2, damage 4. This enhancement makes that Ormite and Adamantine ability worth taking a look at. If, say, Angron charges our Allarus Shield-Captain, we make all incoming damage 1 for that fight phase, and that will give us a good chance to be alive to attack back into Angron. We could also use the Gilded Champion stratagem to reset our Ormite and Adamantine ability. We also have a stratagem that gives us a fight on death on 2+. If we do survive the charge and Angron's attacks, we can swing back, wounding on a 2+ if we have our detachment rule active, since we have strength 12 and Angron only has toughness 11, +1 to wound, we'll be wounding Angron on a 2+. Then in our turn, we can use a stratagem, maneuver and fire for a fallback and charge. We do have another option to deal with big threats, and that's charge right into them. We combined our Allarus Shield-Captain with some Allarus Terminators, and things get crazy. The Allarus would give the whole unit reroll wounds into big bads like Angron, and so far I've found 2 or 3 Allarus with a Shield-Captain is the perfect size. That's 10 to 15 Guardian Spears, along with that Ad Moni Mortis Axe Shield-Captain, sustained hits 1, all hitting on 2s with +1 to the wound. That is a lot of damage on Angron or any other big threats. You could also run the axes, but the AP 1 does really hurt them. They are good into targets with a 3-up save or a 4-up invulnerable, things like Deathwing Knights and Catan, since they only bring our damage down to 2, instead of our Guardian Spears where they bring it down to damage 1. So there is some places for the Castellan Axe, but most of the time, it's Guardian Spears. The next enhancement is Fierce Conqueror, Shield-Captain model only. At the start of the fight phase until the end of the phase, add 2 to the attacks of melee weapons equipped by the bearer for every 5 enemy models within 6 inches of the bearer. Then they don't need to be engagement range, it's just 6 inches within that bearer's model. You know we have some good enhancements in the detachment when getting around an average 4 extra attacks on the Shield-Captain is considered the weakest of the 4 enhancements. The other 3 add more potential to a list, and more attacks isn't really what our Shield-Captains need. They need more tricks and smart play options. The other enhancements offer more to the Allarus Shield-Captain. Then we have Praesidius, and this is Adeptus Custodes model only, so this can be Shield-Captain, Blade Champion, or even a Knight Centura. The bearer has Lone Operative and Stealth abilities. And this is another enhancement that is fantastic on the Allarus Shield-Captain. The Bike Captain is a great choice too. It is Ormite and Adamantine that is adding the power of this enhancement. making all incoming damage to 1. Why does that matter so much? It pairs very well with Lone Op and Stealth. When the opponent moves within 12 inches of a Lone Op Allarus Shield-Captain, we have a pretty good idea they plan on shooting and possibly charging our Shield-Captain. At the start of the shooting phase, you use our Auramite and Adamantine ability to make all incoming damage 1, as well as using Gilded Champion to give us 1 more charge of that ability, and when they do charge, we can reduce all the incoming damage to 1 in the fight phase as well. It makes for an awful unit for the enemy to take out if we drop it into their back lines in turn 3 or turn 4, when a lot of their army will be outside of that Lone Op 12 inches, and they will have to actually turn around and move back to actually get at that Shield-Captain. There is a lot of play with that Allarus Shield-Captain with this enhancement. The last enhancement is Superior Creation. Adeptus Custodes infantry model. The first time the bearer is destroyed, roll 1d6 at the end of the phase. On a 2+, set that bearer back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where it was destroyed and not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units with full wounds remaining. We thought a Dreadnought standing up on death on a 2+ was strong. How about a toughness 7, 7 wounds, 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable Allarus Shield-Captain that once per game can stand up on a 2+. It only works on infantry models, so the Blade Champion, Knight Centura, or on our foot Shield Captains. Sadly, it doesn't work on the Bike Captain. And with Gilded Champion, we can double up on Auramite and Adamantine, as well as stand up on a 2+ with this enhancement. This character is an absolute tank. That's our enhancements. Let's look at the stratagems and how they affect our Allarus units. The first stratagem we're going to look at is Gilded Champion for 1 CP. Any phase just after Adeptus Custodes model has used a once per game ability from their datasheet, your model can use that once per game ability 1 additional time. There is a restriction that we can only use this 1 time on each of our characters per battle. This stratagem has a lot of power in this detachment. Having 2 charges of turn all incoming damage to 1 is fantastic. It makes these Allarus Shield Captains walking tanks. The detachment rule giving them +1 to the wound makes them even more deadly. The longer these stay on the table, the more damage they will do, as well as all the enemy attacks they will be soaking up throughout the game. Next up is Defiant to the Last, and this gives us a 4+ fight on death, with a 2+ character model fight on death and a 4+ for non-character models. This is a great counter to opponents charging into our units. Even better, a counter to fights first stratagems or abilities. Unless there has been a change, we do not get access to Martial Catan when we fight on death, since we need to select a target, and the fight on death wording has you just fighting, not selecting a target. The Allarus will have their reroll wounds and the +1 to the wound from the detachment rule, since they are ongoing effects. I have not had fight on death on any of my main factions, so I'm not 100% sure on this. If I'm wrong, I will pin it in the comments, but I think this is how it works. But once again, correct me if I'm wrong. Maneuver and Fire for 1 CP is a fallback, shoot and charge. And this stratagem in this detachment is better than all the other fallback, shoot and charge stratagems in any of our detachments, especially for the Allarus, even for the Custodian Guard. And why is it better? It has the same wording as all of our other detachments. It is the detachment rule. Against all odds, works in the shooting and the fight phase. As long as we are outside of 6 inches of other friendly units, our attacks will get +1 to the wound roll. This is a big deal on the Allarus Terminator units. Falling back to charge back in will give us fights first to smash the enemy into the ground. The shooting of the Allarus can be potent in this detachment. Each of our melee weapons has a range profile of 2 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2. Then they have the wrist-mounted ballistic grenade launchers, D6+ blast, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. Then the Allarus get to shoot both of those profiles when they shoot, add 1 to the wound roll, and these can do some serious damage into horde and light infantry, or even decent chit damage into tougher targets. Fallback, shoot and charge is a whole different beast in the lines of the Emperor. Next is Peerless Warrior for 1 CP. This is an interesting stratagem since it gives our entire unit's melee weapons the precision ability. Precision for our entire unit is overkill for any character attached to a unit, so it's not something we will use every turn. It will, however, come in handy against units like Necron Technomancers attached to Race, or any other units that the character adds a Feel No Pain to the unit or another strong buff. So use this stratagem and you'll just nuke that character right out of the unit, and you might even take the unit out as well, but you're for sure taking out that character. This used on the Allarus will have them rerolling wounds into that character unit. thus all those precision attacks aim for that character. Then we have Swift as an Eagle for 1 CP. The thing to remember with this stratagem, it is a D6 move. We are not going to roll a 5 or 6 as often as we would like. So plan for low rolls, stick the Allarus out as little as they have to if we want to get some shots off. Pay very close attention to your movement phase. If we can't get our units into some line of sight cover, but maybe if we place the units right, an extra 1 or 3 inch movement could get them out of line of sight. A D6 movement is not the same as a flat 6, but with the Custodes it is much more useful than other factions. Unless they're being hit by some hard AP2 or above or damage 3 and above weapons, the Custodes are hard to one-shot with a unit with small arms fire. It will be doubtful the Allarus are wiped out in one activation, and 1 CP we can move these D6 after being shot into a position that does get them out of line of sight from the enemy army. But remember, the key is to plan for this. You don't want to have them out there and rely on a big 6. You just want to have them peeking out, so a roll of a 1 or a 2 will get them out of line of sight. And like I keep saying, the thing to remember at all times in this detachment is unit placement for this stratagem and the detachment rule. Last up is the most unique stratagem, Unleash the Lions for 1 CP. In your command phase, 1 Allarus Custodians or Aquilon Custodians unit from your army on the battlefield. This unit is split into separate units, each containing 1 model. These new units have a starting strength of 1. And that's not your wounds, that's just for abilities that rely on starting strength, so maybe they get to reroll wounds if you're below starting strength. So if you go from 4 wounds to 3 wounds, you'll now be below starting strength, and they'll get to reroll wounds against you or something like that. This stratagem has the fun factor. Breaking up our Allarus into smaller units is something no other detachment offers. So far, it seems as long as we have not used the Allarus Terminator's Golden Light ability, we will have it available for those new 1 model units. Now, taking 3 6-man units of Terminators and then splitting them up into different Allarus units who can teleport around will cause a lot of chaos. Like I've said before, I don't think this is the way to go. I think this is better used in the late game, but with smaller units. With +1 to the wound on a big 5-man unit of Allarus with reroll wounds, will kill near anything in the game. I like the idea of a 3-man unit breaking up in turn 1 to score some late game secondary points, turn 4 so I can still put them in reserves with Golden Light if it is still available. I have used this in a game recently. I had a 3-man Allarus unit in the enemy deployment, and I drew behind enemy lines, so I split that unit up and got the full behind enemy lines points. There is some tricksy things you can do with this late game. Another problem I can see with this stratagem and using it too early is breaking into a bunch of 1 model units is the against the odds detachment rule. It will be much harder to be outside of 6 inches of other Custodes units when the board is full of Allarus Terminators. That's all the rules for the Lines of the Emperor detachment and how they affect the Allarus Terminator units. And when we add all these rules together, we can make the Allarus Shield-Captain with the Allarus a very deadly unit for us. We may not have mortal wounds protection, but with a fight on death stratagem and a D6 move after being shot, we do have ways to be tricksy. I have also played Custodes all through 10th, and that includes Index Custodes, where there was a time when we had no feel no pains to mortals at all. It seemed to go back and forth until the Codex came out. There would be a balance update where we would have an army-wide 4 feel no pain to mortals, and then the next balance date, they would remove that. So playing with no mortal wounds protection is not new to me. And I cannot overstate the importance of making sure we are outside of 6 inches of other friendly units. It's not going to be possible to do it all the time, but it is really important to make sure that when you can do it, you are doing it. +1 to the wound roll is one of the strongest buffs in the game, and it is huge on the Custodes datasheets. All the better on the Allarus Terminators, Slayer of Tyrants giving them reroll wounds into character, vehicle, or monster units. The shooting and the melee of the Allarus Shield-Captain with Allarus become very reliable with +1 to the wound roll. And that's my guide on why the Allarus are so good in this detachment and why I think the Allarus are back. So let's finish the video with some final thoughts. If you have been looking for a reason to field some of your Allarus models, Lines of the Emperor is for you. I'm having a lot of fun with the Allarus in this detachment. Between the shooting and the combat phase, these are one of our most deadly units. Be sure to try the Shield-Captain with Presidius or the Adman Immortus Axe. Lone Op on a Toughness 7, 7 wound model is quite rare. Same for the Strength 12, AP2, Damage 4 Axe. If you've enjoyed the video, subscribe for battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.